we doing LTO as opposed to a full on menu because we have franchisees all over the world where they're serving consumers with very different taste palettes, different demand. So we want to give flexibility to our existing franchise partners. At the same time, make sure that we stay ahead of the trend.
Everyone eats out, but people often miss how the food arrives on their plate. Every meal has a story of growers, suppliers, founders, and operators making it all happen. Welcome to Grounded. I'm Lauren Mitchell, and each week I will bring you conversation with the amazing people behind the brands you know and the ones you'll want to know. Grounded is powered by the Buyer's Edge platform, the leading food service digital procurement network, powered by data, software, and collaborative relationships. Let's get grounded.
I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest. She's a business and legal leader, entrepreneur, and award-winning restaurant executive. She currently serves as the first female CEO in her company's 50-year history. She's been honored with a 2025 Gold Stevie Award for leading a restaurant brand revival, recognized by Success Magazine as one of 2025's Women of Influence, principal attorney and founder of her own law office, CEO at Tony Roma's Mohaimina Haque. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Oh, thank you. It's so great to have you here today. I am excited to have this conversation as you've really married this expertise and legal background with, again, being the CEO of a restaurant brand. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about today is just how some of that, how specifically your experience has really supported you for what you're doing now. So again, you've had the extraordinary journey from attorney to award-winning restaurant executive. What first drew you to the intersection of law, leadership, and hospitality? How did you get pulled into Tony Roma's?
My journey to Tony Roma is a bit unusual. I always say the best it can be described is as a non-linear path, especially to the C-suite level. I'm an attorney by profession, and I still practice law. And one of the reasons I still practice law because it really keeps you sharp. The analytical skill set and the training we get from law school through years of practice. It's a very different type of skill set, especially when you take an issue and to see it on every sides of it, right? And Tony Roma's at the revival stage, they needed that type of analytical skill in terms of reviewing every part of the company and ensuring, okay, what needs to be addressed. So that's where I came in. I came in because Tony Roma's was sold to an investor company back in 2021. And I was the buy side lawyer. I was doing the due diligence for them. So when I conducted that due diligence, I learned a lot about the company as a part of the due diligence process. And as a result, what happened was I believe I gained the trust of the stakeholders where they asked me, can you also run the legal department? All throughout, I was very consistent that, I can provide any support you want, but I'm not going to give up practicing law. That is my profession. I have spent, years in terms of training myself as a lawyer, putting myself through law school. And as I like to say, I'm a happy lawyer. Fortunate, a stakeholder were very flexible because they wanted me to run the company. They wanted my analytical skills. They wanted that fresh perspective and to protect the investment and to turn it around. I was given the opportunity where I can still practice law and run Tony Roma's, for which I'm immensely grateful for this type of flexibility. And, the takeaway here is sometimes if you don't ask, you don't know, right? What you will get in terms of negotiations, in terms of what is important to you. Because when we get an offer, typically we think this is it. We don't have any bargaining power. So I think it's a lesson for everyone. Like really ask yourself what really matters to you. Perhaps there is a way to strike a middle ground.
Okay, so you're a busy lady, and you're right. I use the our legal team all the time, as it's in regards to compliance and contracting, even crisis management, food safety. I mean, they're involved in every aspect of our business and the supply chain. Um, Being in the spot of CEO now for a brand, and again wearing that hat from your legal background, what insight do you believe more CEOs in hospitality should or could be better off understanding, more deeply?
So, for example, from a business perspective, you see contract as a formality, right? Some clauses may just seem boilerplate. It's like, okay, this doesn't even matter. Why are we spending so much time, like, fine tuning these terms? So, as a lawyer and someone who is doing this practically, I always say that I live both the theory and the practice at the same time because of my dual role. You realize that all these like fine points can sometimes become an issue, and you know how to overcome it. And the other part, especially a brand like Tony Roma's, which have been around for 53 years, it has so many stakeholders. It has franchise partners all over the world. I think the brand protection aspect is very important. Something, I really believe that if my predecessors, although they had access to many amazing law firms, if they would have taken it seriously, there were some things that we could have overcome now, which I'm taking very seriously in terms of brand protection. And what do I mean by brand protection? It's just not enough your IP, especially when you're expanding internationally. A common trend I have seen in the company is internationally, Tony Roma's tried to expand, and there was a very aggressive expansion after 2006. There were some partners who learned from us, and then they tried to unilaterally terminate the franchise agreement. Not unilaterally, they did that and created many copycats. And that affects the brand.
Absolutely, it affects the brand. Yeah, as you guys grow and appear internationally, I know that the risk is increased as well. Talking a little bit more about risk, how do you balance that with innovation as you are reviving a legacy brand? How do you balance the two?
That is a phenomenal question. When you're trying to innovate, you want to try out new ideas. And there's so many like uncharted territory now with AI, and how do you balance the risk, especially when you don't even know something that's completely new? Of course, having good solid terms in the contract, making sure that we protect our IP, and that's where my lawyer had come in. So even when I'm trying to explore an idea, I try to think from every possible angle, from the legal perspective, making sure that our rights are protected. And yet we try the innovative solutions, the models, any type of like technique that out there, because I don't think in terms of that, any company that should be so risk averse that don't try to innovate, especially when you're trying to turn around the brand. And my mission is to out innovate Tony Roma's as a legendary brand. So yes, there is a fine line that we walk and a lot of balancing. Again, protecting us with like very solid contractual terms, yet working with partners, making sure that they respect our IP and they have a good track record too. So it's always a good idea to conduct those due diligence for any partners, vendors that you work with when it comes to innovative solution.
Now, when we talk about reviving the legacy brand and innovating it and edging it so it stays and continues with current times, I mean, can you break that? I mean, what is that looking like for Toma Romas right now? What specifically um, are the changes that are being made? And is it more on menu items or storefront? And how does that change as you're internationally too?
At the moment, it's a comprehensive, changes and transformation going on from menu innovation to our tech stack, finding, what type of solutions that are user friendly in our corporate level, where the turnaround of work products are faster. In other words, to increase efficiency. So for Tony Roma's, in terms of menu innovation, we have collaborations and partnerships where we have more access to data, insights, and analytics in terms of what consumers like. And we're rolling out many terms of LTO and seeing works and what doesn't work. And why are we doing LTO as opposed to a full on menu? Because We have franchisees all over the world where they're serving consumers with very different taste palettes, different demand. So we want to give flexibility to our existing franchise partners, at the same time make sure that we stay ahead of the trend.
That's so cool. How you guys kind of actually can leverage your international exposure and setting to really introduce new flavors and what's working where, and then stay agile to your franchisees. Love that. Listen to your talk a little bit on Bloomberg, and I want to talk about sustainability, or even more specifically tariffs, um, and how that's impact your sourcing strategy. Again, as you guys are international.
Yes. So, we have already started to get emails from best partners about the effect of tariffs that's having on their like supply ecosystem. My approach at the moment is to give flexibility and yet make sure that we as a corporate, we are responsive. So even let's say my franchisees are finding vendors or suppliers instead of bringing them under one umbrella, I am showing openness to qualify those suppliers at the same time, making sure that, they meet our quality and we are doing the QA, QC, and also protect our IP at the same time, because the more suppliers you work with, the more recipes you give out, there's always a risk over there too. But we're trying to be responsive given the unprecedented challenges with tariffs. And the other issues internationally, I think we have a system where franchise partners can rely on local suppliers. But in the US side, what I have started to think one of the challenges of tariff is with the increased cost, there is a perceived value that consumers have, right? And you cannot pass that cost difference to consumers now because they have a perceived value for what they're getting from which brand. So if you increase the price, your demand will immediately go down. So what I started to think is, how can I increase that perceived value for consumers in the event there is any price change?
Hmm. That is that is a really good point. So again, perceived value is based on the price, and when the price goes up, what additional? Yeah, that is fantastic. It's not fantastic, but I definitely understand what you're saying there, and that is a crazy challenge. But as you've talked about, one response, opening up suppliers, and again, agility towards your franchisees, while it does bring in more risk, it's one tool that you're utilizing. How do you identify risks and, let's say, repeated issues in your supply chain? How do you have that visibility, and what kind of antennas do you have out there for that?
So, for example, franchise partner wants to work with a particular supplier, then they need to send a sample here to us, to the corporate headquarters, in the States, and then we do the QA QC. If for some reason they don't pass our QA QC, then we provide some suppliers that, in terms of, okay, let's work with them. But it takes time, right? It's especially our sauce, which is a very bespoke product. Ribs, as you know, there are some challenges with ribs. Ribs, especially even when you're trying to send ribs to the Middle East, one comment we all get is it's expensive and they probably need to bring it from Australia or Argentina. So our global supply system is spread out all over. And one thing I know is there's no one size fit all. This is one work where my purchasing department is completely on their toes and making sure that they continuously respond to these type of demands that are coming from franchise partners, especially with the complexities that are going on globally at the moment.
When making the decision between local and national suppliers, are there any non-negotiables? You've talked about some inputs from your franchisees, and especially the process in terms of being able to be open for other suppliers. But do you guys have firm lines as a brand as far as the single suppliers that you guys would use, single sourcing in any way?
No, so we have a liner agreement with Cisco
Mhm.
for domestic, franchise unit. For Canada, we have few units that are also using Cisco. and then some franchise partners. It's very liberalized, honestly speaking. What I like to say, the Tony Roma supply system is very liberalized in terms of like where franchisee can source from their choice of supplier, but nevertheless, we do that quality control.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about just leadership in general. Like I said, you won a couple of awards, and I want to understand more about your practices that have supported these nominations. What would you say resilient leadership looks like in today's restaurant industry?
There are so many options for consumers. There's so many options, different cuisine. It's not like before, right? There are new concepts, new ideas, new experience that consumers like that, these days. We need to keep an open mind. Like what worked in the past might have worked in the past, but we need to keep an open mind in terms of innovating, in terms of creating an experience. And I think that's where the challenge is. I think restaurants that have been, serving really amazing food at the same time creating an experience, they're the ones that are doing very well at the same time giving good values. So for a restaurant like Tony Roma is what I always tell my team, like how can we create that experience? Because we have a lot of consumers who are nostalgic, who come to the brand because they have shared some special moments in Tony Roma's and they see a Tony Roma's, they get excited and they want to recreate it. But in order to cater to millennials and Gen Zs, we need to create experience, whether, make it Instagrammable or make something that people come not only just to eat food, but there is another experience that they can look forward to in our restaurant. So, in order to go back to your question, what makes a brand resilient in today's world is to keep that open mind and agile and have the ability to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to another brand that has started it was actually with Shuck and Shack, and they started it's called a Fresh and Raw tour where they have bands come in the restaurant every week just in the summertime to play while folks are ordering. And it does totally cater to their brand. It's a very coastal brand, regardless of the city that it's in. It makes you think that you're right, seaside, Jimmy Buffett type island vibe music. There's so many different ways that you can cater to the Gen Z and millennials while still being like what we're talking about, a legacy brand. So very, very interested. What about other ways that bold decisions will say that you've made that have defined Tony Roma's revival, specifically under your leadership?
Oh, when it comes to revival, we internally we are incorporating a lot of like technological solution that was not present before. I'll give you an example. We have a QSR store called Tony Roma's Bones and Burgers. One of the challenges, which is not us, almost all the other brands do, have been to recruit and retain staff at the unit level. And my managers, and even from my corporate side, my directors of training, they have been scrambling in terms of, okay, how can we keep staff? What can we do to motivate? And then we came up with a solution that we partnered with. It's an AI driven solution that basically, instead of posting a job on Indeed, where it's not, where you get thousands of leads and then you have to do the screening, this solution helps you to post the job, do the initial screening, and send you do the short list. So basically, a work of 3 or 4 person in an HR department at the unit level, and then they send a short list of candidates for hiring. So it's time saving. It frees up the time of the individuals involved for these type of decision making. And what I always tell people is like when it frees up those time, let's all sit down and brainstorm what we can do because we know the brand ins and out. So we know where to innovate. We know where to troubleshoot. So I hold all these brainstorming sessions with my team member in terms of let's bring all ideas together. Like there is no bad idea in the room because that's how we can make decisions. So if what AI is doing, I think it's reducing the labor time in terms of work that probably used to take a very long time and opening up time for innovating and sharing ideas and thinking how we can turn the brand around.
I love that example. Using technology to support the labor and hiring process ultimately returns the brand better talent, but also positions the internal team to focus on other aspects for the brand that they would be so otherwise distracted from. So that's so awesome. You've won 2025 Woman of Influence by Success Magazine, and I'm just curious what that recognition has meant to you personally and how you're paying it forward for other women in the industry.
I was very honored and humble to win that recognition, and just thinking of the journey I went through as a woman, all the work I did before setting up my law firm, coming to Tony Roma's, a very nonlinear path. On top of that, I got married really young. I became a mom at the age of 21 and raising my kids while building my career, getting my degrees. With my kids, I did my undergrad, my master's from Georgetown, and my law degree, and I took the bar exam. So just it felt very validated that it was not unseen and unheard, and just a reaffirmation that hard work does pay off.
That's incredible that you became a mother at so young and you have managed to start your own law firm and working dual job as a CEO. That is very impressive, and my hat goes off because these responsibilities we have as mothers are true and real. It's back to school season as we speak, and I call August the longest Sunday night of the year. The entire month feels like a Sunday night. I'm getting the kids prepared for back to school, so yeah, that's so great and well deserved for sure. All right, so let's go back to the brand itself and what you're most excited about for Tony Roma's this year. Perhaps sharing something that our listeners may not know about the brand and can get them excited as well.
So Tony Roma's, we're growing. We are growing, and the it took a while for the brand to sign some new deals post pandemic. This year, we have already started to sign some new deals. So please keep an eye out. There are announcements coming out in terms of new location worldwide in countries where we have presence already and where we will probably have first presence. Of course, I'm very keen on growing Tony Rollins in the United States. We used to have hundreds of locations back in the day. And I would like to have partners who would like to grow the brand here in the US. We know the work we need to do. We are very open minded. It's not only a legendary brand from the past that people are nostalgic about, it's an agile brand. And I think the franchise partners would come into our system. They would see how flexible we are in terms of working with them, yet making sure that we maintain the brand standards.
Fantastic. What is your favorite item on the Tony Roma's menu?
I like the beef ribs. I think our sauce is unmatched. I like our onion low. And the beef ribs, with the Tony Roma sauce, I have had ribs in many places, but I might be biased, but Tony Roma's is at a whole different level, the out of the world level delicious.
Out of the world ribs. I love that. All right, we get back to the end of the show now where I call it rapid fire. I want to ask you just a few quick questions, and if you can give me your best shot answer.
What has been your biggest learning moment as a principal attorney for your law firm, but also CEO of Tony Roma's key leadership roles? What has been your biggest learning moment?
Biggest learning moment is, I see both the role as a place where I serve my clients, and at Tony Roma's, I serve my franchise partners and my internal team as well. I see this role as a role of service. Although I may be the leader, but I think when we embrace that service mindset leadership, we are better as a leader. And every day I'm learning. I think in the restaurant industry, I still have a lot to learn, and my team helps me. And I'm not shy to ask questions because sometimes we may not have all the answers, but if we ask the right questions, that will lead us to the right answer.
I think that's an important point about leadership is just the inherent responsibility that it comes with. I love your answer. Thank you. How about who or what has influenced your thinking the most in your career?
My career, I have been inspired by many icons. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as a woman who went through law school, I just loved her story, both her personal and her professional journey. And personally, my husband is also an attorney, very big support figure in my life. Like, we got married young. We will be celebrating our 19th anniversary in few days. And both of us, if you see our journey, my husband had multiple degrees, and then he has his law degree, and he did the exact same thing for me, where he supported me in my dreams, aspirations, and ambitions. And I think I'm blessed to have that support, because sometimes even we have a lot of ambition, life throws curveballs, but I think I got very lucky in terms of having solid support.
Congratulations on 19 years. And yes, he sounds like a wonderful partner. That is so excellent. I bet the conversations at your dinner side are very interesting. um, okay, how about this one? In thinking about the next generation of supply chain leaders or restaurant hospitality leaders, what skills do you think are going to be a non negotiable for them?
Another very good question. What worked in the past will not work now. You might have gone for many different companies. What worked in one company may not work in your present company. So please try to understand and have a good, skill set in terms of issue spotting, what this company's demands are, requirements are. I have worked with supply chain professionals who would come back and say, this is how it worked in the ABC company, right? But it may not work. There's no one size fit all. So try to create that bespoke, customized solution and have that skill set.
Awesome. And then to go along with the name of our show, Grounded, what is it that you do on a daily that keeps you grounded, given all this work and responsibility that you have on your plate?
So I'm very much aware of the line where, this is burnout, this is exhaustion. I need to take a little step back. I love to spend time with my family. I make sure that, we watch movies together as a family. We go to movie theaters. We go to restaurants. So I definitely get a good sense of reconnecting with my family on a very regular basis. Like, I get a good sense of empowerment from that. As for myself, I am also very much aware when I need to, just take some time and just read and do things that will uplift.
I love hanging out with my family too, and I think it's a very humbling activity, especially when you've got littles. They keep me they keep me right sized every single day. I love your answer. Okay, I can imagine there's a lot of people who are listening that are going to want to get a hold of you to connect with you, either on a legal basis or for the brand. How can people find you?
Well, feel free to visit the Tony Roma's website. I'm also available on most of the social media channels. You can find me on Instagram. The handle is Attorney Nina DC. Feel free to connect on Instagram, and I would be happy to chat with you.
Thank you so much, Mina. You have been a wonderful guest today. Appreciate all your insights.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for having me.
This has been another exciting episode of Grounded. See you next time.
That's a wrap on this episode of Grounded. We've covered a lot of ground as we explored what it really takes to run food service behind the scenes. For show notes, highlights, and our latest market insights, visit us at groundedonthepod.com. Grounded is powered by the Buyer's Edge platform, delivering smarter solutions, greater efficiency, and real savings through connected tech, powerful data, and industry expertise. For more information and to get a personal demo of the Buyer's Edge platform, email me at lauren.mitchell@producealliance.com. And if you liked what you heard, subscribe so you don't miss an episode.